Top mistress of the banging misses and videos. While I'm with my freak like we up in the freak shows. Hit you with the shit, make you feel it all in your toes. Hot shh, got all my people in red clothes. Styling my metaphors when I formulate my flows. If you don't know, you're messing with lyrical player pros like that.
Wanna party with me?
Good morning to everyone. This is the weekly podcast of Walking This Way Impact Voice broadcast from the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, this part of the area. I am your host, Furman Jackson Jr. It's good to be in your presence one more time on this great Saturday. It is, of course, Mother's Day weekend. So happy Mother's Day to all the mothers all around the world, those who are tuning in right now and those who are tuning in to the near future. Just want to say happy Mother's Day to the mom and all the great moms across the world. Also, in the capacity of my guest, Rowe, I would like to highlight that she is a licensed attorney who has gained numerous accolades. These recognitions include being listed as Who's Who in America, receiving the Child Advocate Award, being recognized as a top 10 attorney in family law, as well as being named in top 40 under 40. I just want to hand you a quick introduction. Rowe, thank you for taking time out of your productive schedule to come on. First of all, happy Mother's Day to you as well.
Thank
Mother's Day
you.
weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us into your world. With your professionalism, you're doing great things. Just on that path of showcasing extraordinary people who are doing extraordinary things, and you want to know individuals. So once again, thank you. So go ahead, give us a background on who this phenomenal woman is.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you sharing your platform and your spotlight. So I'm so happy and honored to be here. As you mentioned, I'm an attorney and my practice is in 3 states, Michigan, New York, and Virginia, soon to be Georgia. And we're also international. We have an immigration firm in Ghana. And first and foremost, I'm a child of God. I have Jesus as my Lord and Savior. So I identify as a Christian and am. I'm a mother of 4. I have 4 beautiful children. I'm in a relationship with the love of my life. I sing from time to time, and I just finished writing my new book entitled Tipping the Scales, where I share a lot about my story of how I became an attorney after having a previous career and gone through several different things. So that's a little bit about my background.
And like I said, and you are an extraordinary individual, of course. And like I said, I got some questions for you. And I discussed the question that we're going to talk about on the show. So my first question is, how did your early life experience shape your aspirations?
So I knew I wanted to be an attorney when I was 8 years old. And I got that knowledge or awareness at 8 because my mom, who is listening, hey mom, my mom was watching Matlock. She loved Matlock, Perry Mason, all the court shows, People's Court, all of that. And my mom was my best friend. So I wanted to, do everything she did. So she'd be watching Matlock at night. I'd be sitting right there beside her, watching it with her. And some nights she would let me stay up late because it changed syndication to coming on at 11. And so some nights she's like, well, you got to get up for school, but you can watch it with me. And I loved how she adored watching Matlock. And I'm like, it made her happy. And I'm like, well, I can be an attorney and she'll be proud of me. So that was the first awareness of wanting to be a lawyer. And then it just stuck with me. So.
Okay, so you'd actually the first one in history in your family to become a lawyer, or
I
any other
am.
lawyers, or you the first? Okay,
I'm the
awesome.
first one. Yep. Hopefully
And
there'll be many others after me, but I'm the first one.
so I like that because you knew at that particular age, especially at a young age, what you
Hmm.
wanted to do,
Yeah.
and that is to represent your clients. Make sure everything is called right down the middle. Like, of course, in Proverbs, the Bible says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. So we
Right.
need to have more in these platforms when it comes to the jurisdiction system, law system, and that you represent your clients very, very well. So when you took that journey of becoming a lawyer, um, the work, I mean, how was the grind? 'Cause I know it's work
Ooh.
putting in, but I applaud you because I know you made some major, major sacrifices to get to the point where you're at today. What advice would you give someone who wants to get on that path of greatness? In your own opinion, and on your own opinion, what is the principle you took and make those sacrifices in order to become great? Because we know there's a lot of sacrifice in order to become great.
Yeah. So I mean it is work. It is not easy by any means. So the grind, I will say, at the time I was in law school, I was working full time. I was raising my four children. I had recently gone through a divorce. My parents had divorced, so I adopted my two siblings, or my two younger siblings came to stay with me. And so I'm raising six kids, and I'm in law school and I'm working. So hard is an understatement, right? But I believe, and I live by a philosophy, when you want to do something, you will. And if you don't, you'll find an excuse. So it was hard, but I did it. So yes, it included many sacrifices. So there was some events at school, my kids' school, I couldn't go to. There were events at church I couldn't attend. There was hanging out with my girlfriends. For a long time I didn't know what that even meant. So my nights were consumed with studying after the kids went to sleep. I remember one night I was studying for my contracts exam, and my daughter was sick, and so she kept waking up, and I'm having to like take care of her as well as study or whatever. And then she finally went to sleep at 1 a.m. and I studied from 2 to 6, and then I had to get them up and get them ready for school. I went and took my exam. I aced it, but I was exhausted, and there were so many nights like that. So my advice would be, keep the end goal in mind. I knew that those sacrifices were just temporary, and eventually I would be able to give my children the life that I was working so hard for. So those nights when it was hard, and yes, I wanted to quit, and yes, I wanted to give up, but I would look at them sleeping and like, I'm doing this for them. So I would say, get you a goal and stick to it. Studying for the bar was the worst 2 months of my life. I didn't sleep much. I hardly ate. I didn't go anywhere. I studied 12 hours a day. I talk about it in my book, where my two boys, would stay up. They knew I was studying in the summer, so they were out of school. They would stay up, and they knew I studied till midnight every night, and so they would wait until midnight, and they're like, "Mommy, will you watch Pool Kings with us?" It was a show they loved to watch, building pools in the South. And I would be tired, but I'm like, they stayed up, like, sure, sure, guys, let's watch it. So it's just hard, and but you choose your heart. Being broke is hard too. So it's like you choose, your heart, and you kind of go with it. So that would be my advice.
Right, because at the end of the day, who wants to be broke? I
Exactly.
mean, let's just be realistic with this
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah.
Because when we know that we said money answer all things. You have the financial gain and the financial capacity to be able to live the life that you want to live.
Hmm.
Also provide for your family, because we know what Proverbs says, a good man leaving inheritance for his children's children. So
Hmm.
even though financially, but also spiritually, and that's the mindset, Rowe, that we have to get into, especially when it comes to our community.
Hmm.
Think generation, and I think the great Dr. Miles Monroe mentioned that in one of his books that I have, and he said that how we should think generationally, and we don't think generate. We think about ourselves, but we
Hmm.
never think about our children's children
Right.
legacy. What'd you say about that?
I mean, that building a legacy is huge. It's important, and our ancestors tried their best to do that for us. Our ancestors and our those who've gone before us, picketing and out there marching, and they were doing that for us. They understood how their movements and their actions impacted the generation after them. And so I do the same thing. I'm a lawyer, as I mentioned a moment ago. I pray I'm not the last one in my family. My actions are for my children, my children's children, and it's not just about money, which is super important. Because I did see a quote the other day. It said, yeah, money can't buy happiness, but being broke can't buy anything. So, it's not just about money. Yes, we do want to have money for our children, but what about property? What about making sure they have land? What about making sure,
Right.
most importantly, they have the knowledge and the awareness of how to get those things? So passing down that, as well as those principles, for me, spiritually, giving our children those spiritual principles as well, because we know that with God, all things are possible. So when you start trying to do things in your own strength, you might get a little weak. But I try to pass down all of those things to my children, and how important it is. Even my 9 year olds, we have really significant conversations about life, just to give them a jump start, if you will, on how they can be successful later on in life.
Right, and most definitely, and we know we have a lot of individuals now are being transparent compared
Mm-hmm.
to when we were growing up. No, thank God for our parents. But our parents was only passed on to the information their parents passed on to them, but they
Right.
had great intent. Comparing to when you grew up to you a parent yourself, how has the times evolved? Because now everything is wide open per se
Mm-hmm.
with social media, television, questions, things they put out there. So the method of parenting, how has that been compared to when you was growing up with your mother to
Oh
you
my.
being a parent? So how has that really changed? Is it still the same, or is it just like everything's more wide open now when it comes to
Yeah.
our children and the things they are exposed to now, where they ask these questions to the parents?
Well, first, my mom is watching, so I'm a mind my words, and I'll just play it. But yeah. So the thing is, um, I parent differently. I try to take the things that I enjoyed and the things that have taught me a lot from my parents. Because look, at the end of the day, there's no handbook on parenting. No one really just knows how to do this. As parents, I like to say we fall forward. We try things, and if it doesn't work, then we try a different approach. But when I was growing up, my parents were very strict. Like I couldn't go over anybody's houses, even family members. Sometimes I'd have to go over relative's house, and the answer was no. And I'm like, but that's my aunt or my cousin or whatever. So my parents were very strict. We were in church, 4 or 5 days a week, all day, every day. I couldn't go to the school dances. I couldn't watch The Simpsons. I couldn't listen to certain music. But now that I'm older, I appreciate the things I was not allowed to do because I believe my parents were trying their best to shield me from things they know I would be exposed to later anyway. So they were trying to, I guess, keep me pure as long as possible, if you will. But they were very strict, but they didn't always explain the why. So a lot of times growing up, it was, you can't do this because I said so. And I understand that, yes, you are the final authority. Yes, you have the final say. But understanding is key. The Bible even speaks about with all that get an understanding. And so when I take some of those lessons that I've learned from my parents, but I also try to give context for my children. So when I parent my children, I kind of go through the lens of consequences. And my parents went through, sin. You do this, it's a sin. You're gonna go to hell. And I'm like, I'm 9. Like I don't know what hell is. Like that. I'm just scared of it. But it doesn't really make sense to me. But when I talk to my children, I don't really talk to them in the context of heaven and hell. I know they don't get that. So
Mm-hmm.
I usually talk to them through the lens of consequences. Okay, you want to go hang out with this people, you want to go to this party, so let's talk about that. If someone starts drinking, here's the things that can happen. Or if you want to, my teenagers, I talk to them, about the birds and the bees. Okay, so if you be intimate with this girl and she gets pregnant, then what? Then what's gonna happen? So I teach them in the lens of consequences. Every action you have has a consequence, and you're gonna have to live with that. So I'm not as strict as my parents, but I'm not as loose. Like you mentioned, there's so much out there. Kids have phones and there's social media, and these kids are exposed to things at 9 and 10 and 11 years old that I didn't know about till I was 18, 19, 20. So being aware of that, I keep a very open communication with my children. They talk to me, I ask questions, and I dig deep. I go through their phones I know I have their location. When they go somewhere, I know how fast they're driving. I know I get the parents' phone numbers. If they're going over somebody's house, I meet the parents first. So I'm still involved and I still have safeguards, but I talk to them in a lens of consequences, and I let them know um, how important prayer is. We pray as a family twice a day, every day. And how important that connection is with God from a relationship standpoint. I was taught to fear God, and I was taught to be saved because if I didn't, I was gonna die and go to hell.
Mm-hmm.
Which that was the lens, and that's how my parents were raised. So I don't fault them for that. But I teach my children, to love God because He's a loving God. I teach them about relationship. I don't want you to love God because you're scared of Him. Just like with us, we don't want our children to love us because they're scared of us. We want them to love us because we're good parents, because we love
Right.
them first. So that's pretty much how I parent my children. So there's still some things I do, and I'll be like, I sound just like my mom, or I sound just like what I was listening to growing up. But I just try kind of meld it with, what I thought could have been better.
Right. And because we know you don't want to yell. I don't know why we talking about this morning. Maybe somebody need to hear this morning, but
Maybe.
not to the point where you want to hoop and holler and yell at them. And that's what we
Mm-hmm.
was taught happened to us. You know what I'm saying? We ask a question, you get yelled at. But now you can't really do that because what it does, it causes resentment.
Mm-hmm.
And once resentment kick in, it's kind of hard because that's when they start going on the outside getting answers, and some answers shouldn't be getting, but they start getting these things, this information, and then they start getting this information like, where you just come from, and where you
Mm-hmm.
get that from? Therefore, who taught you that? I didn't teach you that. And but they start getting these things where, well, I try to ask you, you fussed at me, so this individual opened up to me and it set me down and explained. But I'm glad now that parents are open and being more open-minded per se,
Mm-hmm.
that they
Mm-hmm.
are being transparent. And a lot of things we were not exposed to when it came to sex or same sex or all this stuff now, but this stuff open now where you have children who say, well, I think I'm like the same sex, mom, and if you say that back then, you would got fussed at. But I'm glad
Mm-hmm.
now we sort of have these conversations
Right,
per
right.
se
Mm-hmm.
to what to say with all that get a good understanding. What you want to say about that to open communication?
Open communication is so important. It's so important because children want to feel, I mean, even us as adults, communication is important to us. We want to feel understood. We want to feel heard. And children have voices too. In my practice, I represent children who are going through, where their parents are going through divorces, or their parents are fighting over who gets what weekend or who gets what time. And I admire that about the courts in New York because they give the children a voice. They allow the children to be heard in that decision. And so communication is important because a lot of times my clients say things like, I can't talk to my dad, or I can't talk to my mom. They don't listen to me. They just yell at me. They don't understand me. And so having that experience from work and just how I felt growing up, I try to make sure I have open communication with my children. And the thing is, transparency goes hand in hand because I don't just tell my children don't make a mistake because it's a sin, or don't make mistake because there's consequences. I'll share my mistakes that I've made with them. Okay, yeah, when I was your age, I was curious about X, Y, and Z too, and I tried that, and here's what happened to me. So I give them, I'm not coming to their level because I'm still their parent, but I'm
Right? Yeah.
communicating with them in a way where they feel safe. It's a safe space to talk to me because even if, and I tell them, yes, I might get mad, or I might be, I might feel some kind of way because you may say or do something I don't like. But at the end of the day, I want you to be honest with me, because if you're honest with me, we can deal with whatever the consequences are. But if lie, or you don't want to tell me, and you go tell Johnny and Ray Ray down the street, and then I said, no matter what, I'm still left to deal with the consequences of your actions. So it'd be better if we can just communicate and talk about how you're feeling up front. And I recall one time, my son, I went to a dance at school, and I told him, I gave him the trust speech. I'm trusting you to go and do the right thing, and have a good time, be home at X time. I said, if something, he went with his friend, and I said, well, if you want to come home, if anything happens, you can call me, let me know. I said, but you have a good time. And I prayed about it. I was okay. I'm like, he's gonna go, he's gonna be fine. And a couple hours into the night, my son called me, and he's like, Mom, can you come and get me? And I said, sure. I said, when I went and got him, I said, well, what happened? And he said, it was getting out of hand. People were doing things. I didn't want to be a part of it, and I wanted to come home. And I believe that was possible because we foster a relationship of clear and open communication. And it could have gone so many other ways, but I'm thankful to God that because of the conversations we have, and that's not to say they don't still make mistakes, but we can talk about it. So that's pretty much my long answer to why I think communication is so important.
And most definitely. Matter of fact, we're gonna talk about some more stuff. We're gonna be talking about fear. That's another thing I want to talk about too with you, Rowe, as well. Also, after this commercial break.
I originally visited Dress for Success in 2012. I was laid off. I had an interview coming up. My child care provider referred me to Dress for Success, and when she told me about the program and how much it was set up for women, it was a no-brainer. I felt crisp because I knew the information, I knew what I bring to the table, but I didn't have a complete look. There was an opportunity for me to go and get suited, and when I put that suit on, it gave me the confidence and everything that I needed to really move forward. Everything within that suit was sleek, it was polished, and it meant business. At that next interview, I was offered the position because of that suit. I no longer have that suit because I paid it forward. Now another woman gets to experience exactly what I felt through the power of that suit. People may not understand your journey, but your journey is yours, and as you stay the course, Dress for Success provides lifelong resources. Dress for Success really changed the trajectory for my family. We've been thriving and living out loud ever since. And the journey never stopped. I'm still connected to Dress for Success today. Things go good when you expect things to go good.
I want to give a big shout out to my cousin Keisha. That was her in her commercial. Big shout out to her. She's doing major things in St. Louis. She's a conference speaker, book author herself, and she's doing great things. So that was her in her commercial. Big shout out to my bloodline, of course. And we're back here this morning with Rowe as well. I want to you triggered something, and this conversation came to mind. Rowe, I had with an individual in the workplace, and we was talking about being honest and truthful, and then how then the individual said, "Well, I'm not married, and I'm not anyway." But we talking about this, and I was saying that you should be honest and truthful with your significant other. And then the conversation was, "Well, you can't be truthful about everything." So I say, "Well, you lie out of fear. You lie out of consequences. That's what people do." I said, when you were a child and you got in trouble, and your mom said, "Did you do this?" First thing you did, you lied. You lied because you didn't want to get a whooping. So I said that's the same thing you do with your significant other. If you tell your significant other the truth, you've had a fear of the consequences of, okay, I tell her the truth, she's gonna up and leave me and don't want to be with me no more. So that's what I was talking about. I said you lie out of fear. And that's what we did. When you did things and they question you about it, you lied. Why? You did it out of fear of the consequences of saying, okay, I'll tell the truth, I'm gonna get a whooping. I tell the truth, she gonna up and leave me. What you say about that?
So I think that's a great point. I think I agree. And I also want to add that sometimes people also lie out of compassion. And I know that sounds weird, but taking a significant other relationship, if us as women, we're very, very, very concerned with our
Right.
appearance. And if I say, honey, do I look fat in this dress? He's not afraid I'm gonna leave him, but he may say, "Oh no, you look great," out of compassion for my feelings, right? Like not wanting to hurt my feelings. But I think the biggest reason is what you said. Yeah, people lie out of fear. But I also feel like it's coupled with not having a safe space. You're afraid because you don't have a safe space to land, and that needs to be addressed first. When you, at least for Pete and I, we have a great relationship. We can talk about anything. We foster that relationship where even if it's uncomfortable, I'm not afraid to talk to him. It may not be the happiest of conversation, or even if we disagree and there's something he wants to share with me, he's not afraid I'm gonna just spaz out and go off and go angry black woman on him. But we fostered a relationship where we can talk and be open, and it's safe. I can say how I feel as long as we're respectful, of course.
Right.
But I agree with you. People do a lot of things out of fear, not just lie. They're stagnant out of fear. They parent out of fear. They go to work out of fear. They love God out of fear. And it is such a huge part of our lives that needs to be addressed. But I agree with you. I think the primary reason people they lie because of consequences.
Yeah, because it was like I said, just the thing that individuals say and do.
Hmm.
Just like leading someone on. If I tell anybody, if you're not really feeling a individual on that type of level, then don't lead them on. Be honest, be truthful. And I tell, especially with them guys, I'm telling you guys, women know what you want. They already know. They're not they're not naive to what you want, but they know what you want. But it's where you go about things. You know, this guy was saying, "Yeah, I did it." I said, "Well, I didn't want to be in a relationship, but you went along because you wanted one thing from her." And he said, "Well, if I tell her the truth, she's not gonna do that thing for me." Then you're doing more damage than good because you're lying, you manipulate, and you're deceiving someone. That's the worst thing you ever do to anybody.
I agree. I agree. If you don't have good intentions, leave them people alone. Or but you know what? I think sometimes people are underestimated because there are people out there. If you tell them the truth, they might go along with it. They might want the same one thing you want, but you're lying about it. Um, and there's a lot of women that say, "Oh, just tell me the truth and let me choose." And most of them don't mean it, but there are some that do. I'm one of the ones that do. I used to say, and if you tell me the truth, I can handle the truth. I can't handle the lie.
Right.
The cover up, in my opinion, and in my life, the cover up is worse than the crime. And I say that because if you find out something bad, you're upset. Well, why didn't they just tell me? That's usually the first response. Like, well, why didn't they just tell me? Yeah, I might be hurt, I might be mad, but if you tell me, I can kind of figure out what I want to do. So I agree with you.
Right. It's just like it's a conversation. Like if someone came and tell you about you and your significant other, and you be like, you know what, we already talked about that. It was already addressed. If that makes sense, because individual come and will try to bring stuff, but you be like, we already talked about that. He told me that months and months ago, so you don't have to bring it up.
Exactly.
It's already
Yep.
been nipped in the bud, basically in so many words.
Yeah.
All
Absolutely.
right. So my next question is, can you recall a specific moment or event that set you on the path to where you are today?
Yes, absolutely. So I remember being an undergrad. I went to University of Phoenix because they had an accelerated program. I wanted to graduate faster, whatever. And I was in a communications class, and we had a black professor. He was amazing. And week after week, we would do our work, and he would give his speeches on the topics of class or whatever. And one day, he starts talking. I know it was God because he had never done this before in our classes. And he starts talking in the middle of class. I guess someone had asked a question or something about the topic, about speaking in front of people or something. And he starts talking about following your dream and how sometimes as people we get afraid, as you mentioned earlier, fear. You get afraid and you put your dream on the back burner. And he was saying, if there's something inside of you that wants to pursue a specific career, or you want to pursue something, it's like, don't be afraid. He was like, even if you fail at the first try, keep going. So he starts having this whole speech about following your dream. And as soon as he said it, I'm thinking to myself, like, I want to be a lawyer. Like at the time I was managing banks, and I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, but it just seemed so far out of reach. So I was pursuing a degree in business management because my job was paying for it. But underneath, I wanted to be a lawyer. And so he starts talking about following your dream. And I had put it on the back burner at the time. And so I listened to that class. And then I remember talking to my grandfather about a week or two later. I had went to visit him in Indiana. He's deceased now, but I remember talking to him, and I told him what happened. And he said, "Papa," he says to me, he's like, "Well, you can do that." He was like, "You need to go pursue it, go to school." He's like, "Fine." I said, "Well, Papa, I don't know what to do." He said, "Well, research it. Ask some people, talk to some people." He said, "But you gotta do something." He's like, I believe you can do it." And he encouraged me, and I applied to law school. I took the LSAT, I applied, and there was a series of other events that happened in that path to make it come true. But it was that speech from my professor, that conversation with my grandfather, and I went and applied. I got accepted. I got a partial scholarship. I got my letter of acceptance, and I didn't call my grandfather. I got in the car. I called off work. I got in the car and I drove 4 hours to show it to him. I popped up at his house. I'm like, "Papa, I did it. I got in." And he started saying how proud of me he was, and he was going to come to my graduation. And, he was just so excited. He couldn't wait. And then he passed away a week later. So I'd like to think that all of that was ordained for me to do it and for him to see, at least the beginning of which come to pass. But if it wasn't for that discussion from my professor and conversation with my grandfather, I don't know if the timeline would be where it is today.
Yeah, most definitely. And I like that. And my next question is, were there any influential people or mentors who guided you during the early stage of your journey?
Yes, there's so many, but I'll talk about a few briefly. First, my godmother, Mavis. She worked at a law office as a paralegal, still does. So shout out to Mavis and Mr. Birch. They're phenomenal people. And so I was kind of like on her hip for a lot of the years between 12 and 16. And so I would go into work with her, and I would, file papers and sit in the office with her and just watch what she did. So it was my first experience in a law firm, but she was a paralegal. I didn't work much with Mr. Birch. I was in the office, however, at that time, but just seeing her in the field, a Black woman, and she's so proficient. I'm like, this is dope. And then when I started law school, I had a Black professor, female Professor Necole Ewell, who I adore, absolutely adore her. She was my contracts professor, and I'd always breezed through school. I talk about this in the book too. I'd always breezed through school, straight A's, honor roll, dean's list, whatever. I graduated cum laude from undergrad, so school was easy to me. I get to law school, and school is different. School is hard, and I'm just like, wait a minute, And I started to second guess myself. And I remember my first contracts exam, it was a midterm, and I got a D. I had never got a D in my life. And I'm bawling, I'm boo-hooing, like law school's not for me. Like it was my first failure in school, if you will. And she said in class, well, if you have questions about your exam, come see me. I made an appointment. I went to see her, and I'm bawling in her office. I'm like, I don't know how this can happen. I thought I knew the material. I thought I understood it. This is not for me. So I'm just going on and on. And she just sit there. She let me get it out. She handed me some Kleenex, and she let me get myself together. And she said to me, she said, law school is a different beast. She said, these tests aren't like any other test you've ever taken. She said, you know the material. She said, you just have to understand how to take the test. And that'll preach, right? Because in life, we know, the material, if you will. But when we're tested is when we fall out and faint and we lose sight. So I said, well, help me, how? And she said, this is how we're testing. And she started giving me examples of how different aspects of law school, different aspects of the material are tested. And she worked with me, and I met with that lady I said, well, even at this point, can I still pass the class with the D, on the midterm? And she said, yeah. She said, in fact, you can still get an A, but she said, it's going to take a lot of work. And I met with her, and I saw how dope she was. She had went to Yale. She was a mother. She was a wife. And she owned her own firm. She's killing it. And I'm like, well, if she can do it, I can too. So seeing her in a role that I wanted, and her encouraging me and telling me I can do it and showing me, because we see so many times in our careers, in our fields, there's people who they'll close the door behind them, right? They're not trying to help anybody else get in. And she was just like, no, you can do this. I will help you. And so if it wasn't for her, it's very likely I would have dropped out of law school, because I'd have been like, this is not for me. I'm, go on, keep pursuing the management field that I was already in. So I would definitely say those two. There's so many others, but I know for time purposes, I won't go into it, but those two stick out the most.
Man, that's what's up, Rowe. Hey, we're going to take another quick commercial break, and we're going to be right back in our Q&A conversation. My name is Furman Jackson Jr. I am excited to be one of the affiliated for the professional networking session brought to you by 3-in-1 Trinity Service. This awesome event will be taking place on Saturday, May 18th, year 2024 at the Bill J. Priest in Dallas. This will be a very impactful event for like-minded entrepreneurs. Come out, network, experience, and most importantly, support the pitch contest that's going to be a part of this extraordinary event. I will see you there.
Hey y'all, Shane Pratt here. I'm super excited to be your MC for 3-in-1 Trinity Services Entrepreneur Conference and Pitch. Come and join us May 18th, 12:30 to 5 at Bill J. Priest in Dallas. This will be a very impactful experience filled with fun, learning, and most importantly, support for the pitch contestants. Remember, that's May 18th, 12:30 to 5 at Bill J. Priest. Get it on your calendar. I can't wait to see y'all there.
Hey, good morning to everyone. We're back here on the Saturday morning edition here on the Walking This Way's Impact Boys podcast. We are live streaming on all social media platforms. We're live streaming on Facebook. We're live streaming on LinkedIn. We're live streaming on YouTube, Twitch, and X, formerly known as Twitter this morning. And we thank everybody for in the comment section. Big shout out to those in the comment section this morning. It's truly, truly appreciated. I don't want to get the ones who do support the podcast on a weekly basis. Got to acknowledge y'all because you always want to acknowledge the people who support you. So we're back here on the Walking This Way Impact Wars podcast. We're Rowe, of course, doing a lot of store and everything. You had numerous awards as well. What was your first experience when you won your very first award?
So my first award I got as an attorney, I received the Child Advocacy Award in New York. And for me, it was a big deal because it showed that my superiors acknowledged the work that I was putting in for my cases. And, I was a newer attorney. I'd only been practicing a couple years at the time. And from my understanding, in years prior, it was a coveted award. They only gave out one in Manhattan in the office that I was in. So it was an all or nothing thing. And I worked with some pretty extraordinary people who I would also feel were deserving of that award also. So it was a privilege. And when I told my older boys, they were so excited. And so unfortunately at the time, the ceremony for the award, COVID had happened. So it wasn't going to be in person now. And so it was kind of like on video or whatever. And so my kids were with me, as I accepted it. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. I think the biggest thing was just at that time I was going through a lot in my life and my confidence wasn't the best. And so to be honored for someone to see value in me at a time where I didn't really see much value in myself, it really meant a lot to me.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned that you did go through some things, of course, in your bio as well. That kind of lead up to that question. Were there challenges or setbacks that, in hindsight, played a crucial role in your personal development?
Oh, it's so many. I'm a true believer in the Word of God, where it says all things work together. At the time it's happening, you don't see it working together. But now, as I look back over my life, every trial, every hardship, every mountain, valley, all of it, it really worked for me, and not against me. So there's a couple of significant events, one of which was my parents' divorce. It really traumatized me, as well as my siblings, my kids. Life for us as we knew it was upside down. And they had their reason, and it's no fault to them, but just the impact that it had, it came with a lot of additional responsibility for me as the oldest, that I had to shoulder at a point in my life where I was having my own issues. So it kind of compounded some other things, so it kind of felt like a crushing, if you will. And in addition to that would be, I married young at first, and then I tried it again. And at those times in my life, it wasn't necessarily the best decision. I did it for, several reasons, one of which, thinking it was the right thing to do, because I was pregnant with my son, kind of thing. So it's just so many things that were hard at the time that I was going through, but now I see it worked for me. Had I not gone through those divorces, I wouldn't be able to appreciate the love of my life that I have now. Had my parents, their divorce showed me I can shoulder way more than I thought I could. It showed me that I can overcome. It showed me that God is with me no matter what I go through. Even when I feel like everybody else has left, those situations let me know God will never leave. He's so faithful. even in the moments where I walked away from him, he never walked away from me. So there's been several. I mean, I had brain surgery in 2019, and that's earth shattering because there's two outcomes. You could live or not, right? So I had a broken jaw in 2022. Like, it's just, I had medical issues. Even while I was going through law school, I was dealing with Chiari, which is a brain condition that would cause numbness on the right side of my body. And sometimes I would lose feeling and I would have excruciating headaches. And sometimes it would cause dizziness and fainting. So I had medical issues. So it's just been a lot. I talk about all of this in the book also, but it's just been a lot. And at the time I was like, God, do you even love me? Like, do you even see that I'm here? And even in that, he was there. He was there. And so now, I mean, now when I encourage people and I talk to people, I'm like, there's nothing you can't do. God won't leave you. And I'm not saying that because I read it. I'm saying it because I lived it. And for me to be where I am now with all of the turmoil, all the things that I've gone through, I know it's nothing but God. So again, all things, all of those things, the nasty things, the ugly things, even, the uncomfortable things, they really do work for us.
Yeah, I know you mentioned a book, and I know you still in the prime of your career, in the prime of your life. When do you knew it was time for you to go ahead and write this book? I know a lot of time when people write a book, they do it towards the tail end of their journey, but you're doing it in the midst of your journey. I know you're still in your prime. When you know it was just time for you to do that?
You know, it's weird because I knew, I don't know the first moment I knew, but I know my cousin Angie and I were talking. I was going through something, one of the many things I was going through, venting to her about. And I was talking to my cousin, and she was like, "Girl, you'd have been through so much. You should write a book." And I'm like, "I know, right?" And then that was just a conversation. But then it seemed like a series of conversations with different friends or relatives, or, people, when I would try to encourage somebody that was going through something, I'd be like, God can help you because I went through this. And as I'm telling them my story to encourage them, they looking at me like, "You went through that? You should write a book." And so it just kept coming. It just, people kept saying you should write a book. And then at a time I was, in a relationship with someone, and it wasn't the best relationship at all. And I brought up people keep telling me I should write a book, and he slammed that idea. Like, you're not successful enough, and ain't nobody gonna read no book about you. Like, he just like took that idea and like bought it up and threw it away, and that just crushed my confidence. And so then I'm like, well, maybe he's right. And I start thinking, listening to that. So for years I put it away, and people would still keep telling me. And then one day, I was scrolling on Facebook, and the gentleman who connected us,
Right, right.
my book
Big shout
coach,
out to him. Yeah.
big shout out to Coach Trent. If you are thinking of writing a book, please call him. That man is anointed. But anyway, he made a post. I don't even know how he popped up in my timeline. We weren't friends or anything, and he had made a post like, do people keep telling you need to write a book, and all those things you went through in life wasn't just for you. By writing a book, you can help so many people. But like, basically, he said in his post what all of my friends have been telling me for years. And I was like, well, God, maybe this is a sign. So I prayed about it. And I'm like, well, Lord, if this is what you want me to do, make the way. And one of my other friends had recently published a book. And so I reached out to him. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you. And he said, I don't know what you're happy, for me for. You're supposed to be out here with me. And, he start, ministering to me like, you need to do this. And, God is going to use you to touch so many people. And so I just leaned into it at that point. And my goal, honestly, is to write so many more. So I know some people towards the end of their life, they write one book and they're done. But God has given me so many book ideas that can help the kingdom. So I do plan to do more. So that's pretty much the progression, how it happened.
Yeah, I know you mentioned the last relationship you went through. So you say in that when you experienced mental abuse as well, can when you present him that you want to do this and you're not successful enough. So do you go through mental abuse as well also? Because we know mental abuse is the worst abuse. You can have physical, the scars will heal from physical, but it's some of that mental abuse that really does something to someone.
Absolutely. I went through emotional abuse in that relationship. It was hard. And you don't I didn't realize it as it was happening, because you think you just trials, you think it's just, life happens. But it's the little things, it's the microaggression. They say it's the little, what is it? I can't think of the phrase, but it's the little mice that attack the vine or something like that. But it was the little things, like, when I got an award and I shared with him that I got an award, it wasn't congratulations, you deserve it. It was like, oh, well, maybe they feel bad for you because you had surgery, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. And so it's like nothing I did was good enough. And then even in addition to that, you start believing. And at the time, I was away from my family. I was living in another state at the time. And so I didn't have a lot of friends and family around. And so if that's what you're presented with on a daily basis, what you feed will grow, right? And so if you're hearing that, and you're not strong enough in your faith, and you're not strong enough mentally, it'll start to wear you down little by little. But I kept my worship. And that's important to note, because those are the moments where God was still there. So it was a battle, if you will. But I will say that, there's no wound God can't heal. And so even after I left that relationship, there was still residue of low confidence, low self-esteem, because I had gone through it for a few years. And so then I'm trying to dig myself out of it. And I'm working, and I'm getting accolades, and I'm telling people thank you. And my clients are like, yo, you changed my life. Thank you. But deep down, I'm still questioning whether or not I deserve it, whether or not I'm worthy enough. And at times I still kind of battle with the imposter syndrome, but I'm so grateful that God has blessed me with people who love me, that are around me, that pour into me, my friends, my family, my children. They pour into me, and they let me know, like, you rock. And they not just saying that because, they're my family and friends, but they point out specific things that I do. My sister yesterday, I took her to dinner, and she's telling me how much I encourage her and inspire her. But even with Pete and I, my fiance I'm with now, he talks to me and he uplifts me. He never downs me. He always encourages me. Even if I'm asking him, I'm trying to vent to him about something about myself, he does not partake in that. He's just like, nope, I'm not listening to that. Nope, we don't do that over here. And it's so refreshing. And when we first got together, he would pour into me spiritually and physically. I mean, he still does, but he would do that. And it was uncomfortable because I never had that before. And I didn't know how to receive it. And so I would cry. And he's just like, why are you crying? And he little by little, just like little by little, the enemy was taking it from me. Little by little, God was giving it back to me through him. And so we would have a conversation, and he would just start pouring into me, and I'm in tears. He's like, why are you crying? I'm like, I've never had this before. And I started to feel like I can do this. My confidence started to grow. I started to be more encouraged, and I'm just like, wow, God is so good. And so now I'm at a space where I'm more confident. I know that I should be here. I know that the things that God has blessed me with, I deserve them. I've worked hard for them, but it took some time. But it was because of the emotional abuse that I've experienced in the past, trauma that I hadn't dealt with. So go to therapy, people. It works. And also by having someone in my life who pours into me and doesn't just take away from me.
Man, that's what's up right there. And then let's talk about activities and hobbies, of course. So what activities or hobbies bring the most joy and fulfillment outside of your professional life?
I love that question. So my first hobby, I like to sing. So I sing a lot. I sing at church. I used to sing professionally years ago.
Okay.
But I sing. I enjoy spending time with my kids, my family. We go bowling. We're a bowling family. I love the beach. Any place where there's a beach, please take me. I enjoy. I feel like God speaks to me through the waves. I don't know what it is. I love being on the beach. I love coffee. And I love to eat. So I'm a foodie, so I like going to nice steakhouses and, checking out the atmosphere. So those are pretty much I love to travel. And I got that love of travel from my grandfather. When I was a little girl, he had to preach everywhere, right? He was like the preacher's preacher. He was everywhere all the time. And as a little girl, he would take me with him, and we'd be road tripping, every weekend somewhere. And I adored it. And so now I have this love for travel. as well. So I'm always trying to plan some trip. If I'm home too long, too many months without a vacation, I get antsy. But yeah, so those are my hobbies and things that bring me joy.
That's okay. So how do you balance your work life with your professional interest and passion? Because we know balance kicks in somewhere. So how do you balance all that?
I used to use the word balance, but I can't balance. It's a juggling act.
Okay.
So what I would say is, and I got this from my friend Christina. She talks a lot. She's a life coach. She talks a lot about being in alignment. And I think when we look at it that way, instead of trying to balance it all, because when we're balancing, there's this teeter thing going on.
Right,
And
right.
sometimes you can be unstable when you're trying to balance. But when you're in alignment, you kind of flow, right? And so what I do is I prioritize most certainly, and I schedule. I'm very intentional about my schedule, because if it's not on my schedule, it's not going to happen. So I take my priorities for the week, if you will, and I say, okay, this week, what are the things I have to get done? I have a whiteboard. It's out of my reach. I would show you, but I have a whiteboard, and I put my priorities for the week. I have to do these 5 things. And then I say, okay, well, given my work schedule and given life and what the kids got going on, how is that going to happen? And I schedule it. Now, there are times where it doesn't go according to schedule, but I at least have a blueprint, and then, I tweak it as needed. But I'm very intentional about my work. I'm very intentional about spending time with Pete. I'm very intentional about spending time with my family, my children, my friends. And I'm very intentional about my worship time with the Lord. And so I plan all of those things. I make sure I see, my older son, Bryce. I see him every other week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I make sure, Mondays are my travel days where I have to, go between New York and Michigan and Georgia. I make sure, that every week I do something with the kids on the weekend. Every week I speak to, clients for court for the following week. So you just have to be intentional, but also in alignment, because sometimes God will step in and say, take off today. I want to talk to you. Or, my daughter will be sick and now there's no work. Now I have to be with her. So if you're in alignment, things will flow, and it'll be the outcome you're looking for. I think it will be there. When you're trying to balance, you feel overwhelmed. At least for me, when I was trying to balance
Hmm.
things, I felt overwhelmed. Like, oh my God, it's always something I got to do. And at times I still get overwhelmed because my schedule is a mess sometimes. But when I was focusing so much on trying to balance everything, it was just so much harder. So now I'm like, okay, let me just boil it down to the few things I really have to do, and then I'll fit in everything else. And that seems to be working for me.
Well, that's what the most important thing, Ro, that it works for you and works together for your good, of course. And I'm
Yeah,
asking you this too. Can you share a specific way in which you aim to positively impact the lives of others?
absolutely. I remember asking God for my purpose. This was like back in 2019. Like, God, what is my purpose? And I was on this purpose train. I'm reading all the Miles Monroe books, TD Jakes books. A good friend of mine, Pastor James. I was reading his book. I'm like, what is my purpose? What's my purpose? And the Lord was just like, you are not going to find it in one of their books, right? Like, I created you. Ask me, talk to me about it. And so I went into prayer, and the Lord spoke to me in prayer. The Holy Spirit told me that my purpose is to advocate and encourage. And so I advocate, in my daily life as a professional, as an attorney, and and I encourage the people of God. And I do that through my ministry, through speaking. I do it through singing. I do it through, a text, hey girl, God loves you. I'm praying for you. I do it through my intercession time when I'm praying, my prayer list. So if you were to boil me down into 2 words, it would be advocate and encourage. And that's how I positively impact the lives of others. I do it with my clients. I do it with my kids. I do it with my friends, with my social media followers. That is everything I post. I want to be either advocating or I want to be encouraging, because I believe the body needs that.
Oh yeah, all the time. And that leads up to this one. How do you align you talked about that earlier? How do you align your daily actions with the long term legacy you hope to I almost say where hope what leave behind?
Absolutely. Daily actions, prayer. Prayer is most important. I start my day with prayer. I end my day with prayer. And being in alignment with God's plan. My goal, my heart's intent is to do what God has me to do, to be where He wants me to be and say what He wants me to say. So I start every day with prayer. I pour into my children daily because I believe they're little plants and they need water to grow. And I speak life into them. I pray over them. I talk to them. I encourage them. I focus on my priorities for the day, as I mentioned. What do I have to do today? And I get it done. And I believe by pouring into my children every single day, that'll have such a lasting impact on them the rest of their lives. And by covering them in prayer, because God can do in prayer what we can't do in our human strength. So those would be the actions that I take. And
And
communicating,
awesome.
with those I love on a daily basis. Tell your people you love them, because tomorrow is not promised. Send a text to that auntie, that uncle, or the cousin you haven't talked to in a long time. So I communicate with my people that I love, even if it's just a small text, because I'm pretty busy. But yeah, I think those things are important.
And also, I ain't gonna take one quick commercial break, and then we're gonna get back into our final remarks with Rowe. So y'all keep tuning in.
We gripping it with two hands. Back touchdown, and you know you running through that. Bad, ooh yeah, she love it when I do that. Pull her hair with one, but from the back, grip it with two hands. Spinning for a two-piece, well I meant to say two bands. But I already knew that.
Like a Corleone, bringing that pressure to all of the opposites. Kill you see it, a block was missed. On the block with a Glock hanging out the bitty. That affection, I swear I'm gon' make them feel it. Out the top of the drop when I let off a city. Wanna live like this shit, be a part of the beat. Wanna come like this shit, better change your attention. In that order, I'm a chief that I mentioned. On in your 40 and see how you get. Beat up off disrespect to them. Wisdom gon' come when you see what is written. Under the sun, gotta see what been hidden. Ain't got no money, but flooded a pendant. Come in the strip, but can't live in a prison. Ain't cut like this, it might need to be. Damn.
Spinning for a two-piece, well I meant to say two bands. I just bought a two-piece, cooking it in two pans. We gripping it with two hands. Back touchdown, and you know you running through that. Bad, ooh yeah, she love it when I.
Hey, what's up, ladies? We are back here on the Walking This Way's Impact West podcast. This is our Saturday morning edition. Of course, I have teachers available. You've seen across the screen. So go ahead and shop with us. We have men and women tees available with slogans, designs, you name it. It's all about uplifting, empowering, and supporting the podcast. Also, those that's on the YouTube side, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. I go live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. So you'll never miss a new episode every other week. So we're back here on this Saturday morning edition. I'm respectful of your time, Rowe. Let's talk more about the book. When will the book be due? When will the release date come? Will there be a tour as well? Explain all that other great stuff.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. So the book is still in editing phases now. So ideally, I'm looking at within the next month for it to be released. That's my hopeful goal within the next month. I haven't really thought about a tour. I know there will be a signing, so I'll do a book signing.
Okay.
So I'm not really sure about the tour, just with my schedule with the kids and all of that right now. I don't know how feasible it would be.
Right.
However, I do intend to do two signings, one in Michigan and one in Georgia. So I'm really, really excited about that. You can get the book by going to reneshasbook.company.site. So it's RANESHASBOOK.company.site, SITE. So you can follow me on social media at Rowe Necole. I'm really, really excited about this book. I poured my heart and soul into it. It took me so long to write it because I kept, I don't know if I want to share this. People might, it might hurt somebody's feelings, or, it might expose me. I didn't want to feel exposed, basically exposed in a sense like telling my business,
Right, yeah.
But I understand that I went through those things to help people. And so I'm like, I gotta get this out here, get it out of my head, get it on the paper. Coach Trent was great with helping me do that. So I'm super excited about the book.
Man, that's what's up. And then think about that, maybe think about in the beginning when Adam and Eve and how the Bible said they was naked and they was not ashamed. And that's how God wants us to be. God wants us to be naked and not ashamed. We don't have no clothes on. Everything is shown, right? So God wants us to be that way. He wants us to be open, but not be ashamed. The enemy wants you to be ashamed. Oh, if you say this, what they gonna think? what they're gonna say, or they're gonna look at you differently, or they're not gonna be receptive, or you're gonna lose people. And then if you bite off into that fruit, and then you be like, yeah, you're right. But you overcame all that. Because the scripture says that God
Hmm.
did not give the spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. And congratulations you on your book, being a
Thank
book
you.
author as well also. And like I said, I'm respectful of your time. So I'm going to ask you this. Do you have any signs of advice, any words of wisdom that you want to leave here on the platform for those that's listening right now and those who will tune in and listen to it in the near future?
Absolutely. So I'll make it brief. Number one, all things work together. All things work together for your good. So when you're going through something, you need to ask God, what's the lesson I'm supposed to learn out of this? I do find that sometimes when you go through the same thing over and over and over, it's because you haven't learned the lesson yet. So I would say all things work together. Look for the lesson in whatever it is you're going through. Number two, I would say find your purpose in God. I know a lot of people are they have that question, why am I here? Go to God. You know, when you want to learn how to use a product, you look at the manual, right? And
Right.
so God is the manual for our lives. So if you want to know why you're here, what purpose you were created for, go to God and pray. You know, number three, there's nothing you can't do without God on your side. There is nothing. The Bible says, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. So don't ever doubt yourself. If there's a dream or a goal or something you want to accomplish, just know that you can do that. Just ask God for direction, you know, do the work because no one's going to knock on the door and hand you $1 million. Do the work, but you know, be encouraged, believe in yourself. Don't let anybody tell you what you can't do because the only person that is responsible for your success is you. I shared yesterday with my sister, we were just talking about, you know, just traumas in life. So you can't control what happens to you, but you can
True.
control what the outcome is after that, right? So
Right.
just because something happened to you doesn't mean you can't be successful. You're responsible for your success. You know, other people can do things to you, but you know, you determine how it affects you. And then
Right.
lastly, I would just say, don't settle. Don't settle. Don't settle for that unhealthy relationship. Don't settle for that mediocre job. Don't settle for disrespect. Don't settle for a mediocre life. So whatever life you want, go get it. Don't settle for it. Don't make concessions. If you know in your heart this is not the right person, you know, ask God for the strength to walk away. If you know in your heart this job sucks and there's no growth here, ask God, you know, for direction for your next thing. Just don't settle. I settled too much in my life and it cost me a lot of time. And my advice to others would be not to do the same. And lastly, my last piece of advice would be get my book.
Awesome. Hey, you know what? That's what it's all about. You're excited about it, and that's what it's all about. So y'all make sure y'all get Rowe's book. And what's the name of your book, by the way?
Tipping the scales.
Okay, tipping
Tipping
this.
the scales. You know, it's a play on words for an attorney, you know, the scales of justice. So tipping the scales, how I turned my tragedy turned triumph story. So it's basically letting you know all the things that I've gone through and how I use that to become the woman that I am today. So I tipped the scales in my favor, and that's what the book is about.
Man, awesome stuff. Like I said, it is Mother Day weekend, so Rowe, go ahead and enjoy your Mother's Day weekend with your
Thank
children as
you.
well. And big shouts to all the mothers as well that's tuning in as well. Also, man, remember one thing, and I get big shout out to Steve Dean Williams. You said this too. Remember the graveyard. Everybody had one thing in common. They thought they were gonna see tomorrow. Let's live life
Mm,
like it's our last, because you never know what tomorrow's gonna bring. Live your life. And you said it earlier, Rowe, as well. So don't settle. Make things happen. And I gotta give big shout out to Mr. Justin. He said this as well. You don't stop working till your heart stops. If your heart is still pumping out blood this morning, that means still get to work. And like Tom Brady said in the interview earlier, if you get tired and you feel like it, break through that. Still put in the work, of course. Still stay focused on your goal. Trust me, Rick Ross said this: your goals don't care how you feel. You
mm.
may feel tired. That goal don't care how you feel. You may feel sleepy, weary, whatever you want to call it. That goal does not care. Put in the work. And look at it, bro. We already in the 5th month of 2024. And you got to ask yourself, if I'm at where I need to be at, or is I'm just going along, just get along, or I'm just, it is what it is. You have to make up your own mind. And like you said earlier, Rowe, nobody's not gonna knock on your front door and give you $1 million. It's not gonna happen. You got to get out here and go get it. You know, you got to get out here like a hunter. A hunter go have to go out here and hunt. The prey is not gonna come to the hunter. The hunter got to go out there for the prey. So you had to be that hunter and go out there and get that prey, whatever that prey is that you want to go. You got to do it. You have to do it. Tomorrow's not promised, ladies and gentlemen. You have to go do it. That's pretty much it. So, man, y'all have a great Saturday. And I will be back here Tuesday night, prime time, of course, at 7 p.m. I will be doing, matter of fact, I'll be doing 3 shows, 4 shows, 5, you want to say it. I'll be doing a Tuesday night show, then I'll be doing a Wednesday morning show at 10, and then I'll be doing a Wednesday night show at 7, and I'll be doing a special edition show Thursday morning at 10. So a lot of more content, a lot of more interviews, a lot of people sharing their stories. So that's pretty much really it, man. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you for
Enjoy
having
Mother's
me.
Day. And you're welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your productive schedule once again to come on the show. So we out this thing, man. Y'all be blessed. Peace.